Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the 17 Filipino seafarers taken hostage by Yemen's Houthi rebels in the Red Sea are safe. Senators now want swift action for their release. The Justice Department says it will consult the government's executive branch on resounding calls in the House to cooperate with the ICC's drug war probe, but Vice President Sara Duterte calls for respect. And China accuses the Philippines of stirring up trouble following its joint patrols with the United States in the West Philippine Sea. Senator Risa Hontiveros joins us in the program. Senators seek swift action for the release of 17 Filipino seafarers held hostage by Yemen's Houthi rebels in the Red Sea. A lawmaker urges government agencies to use their diplomatic ties and coordinate with other nations to immediately bring home the crewmen of the hijacked cargo ship. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives tackles a new resolution urging cooperation with the International Criminal Court's investigation into the Duterte drug war. The resolution filed by two congressmen gets some negative reaction from their counterparts in the upper chamber. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, it's so good to see you again. Welcome back to the source.
Likewise, Pinky. Thank you.
All right, lots of topics to discuss. Let's start with 17 Filipino seafarers. It's already been known, according to the DFA, through the spokesperson, Ambassador Daza, that they are making all diplomatic representations. The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, also saying they are constantly in touch with the families of the hostages. Are you satisfied with the government's move, or do you have any suggestions on what else needs to be done?
Well, first of all, Pinky, thank God talaga. Salamat sa Diyos na ligtas sila. That was my first call to both the DFA and the DMW when this crisis was first brought to all our attention. And I hope that all throughout this hostage taking, that both departments stayed in close touch with the families of our 17 kababayan to keep them updated, especially on the efforts that have now borne fruit in their safe rescue or release. I hope that they will eventually be brought home safely to their families and to our country. At kapag nangyari na yon, Pinky, I hope especially DMW will step up to rehabilitate, including through psychosocial counseling and reintegration after this traumatic incident. At sana para maiwasan, moving forward, further incidents like this, it just brings to our attention how urgent passing legislation is, like the Magna Carta of Seafarers. At sana dun sa batas na yon, which we will be working on in BICAM, pushing it towards passage, sana manatiling sentro talaga ng batas na ito yung ating mga seafarers. So I continue to pray with all our kababayan that if our 17 Pinoy seafarers so far are safe, that they can be rescued and brought home to their families and to our country.
Senator, you're a co-author of the Magna Carta for Seafarers,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Very proud co-author, yes.
Tell us, how will this protect our seafarers?
It would be the first Philippine law giving flesh to our international commitments to uphold and promote and protect the rights and welfare of Filipino seafarers as working people, sea-based overseas Filipino workers. Their rights and welfare vis-a-vis their employers, the shipping companies, their rights and welfare in relation to the manning agencies that are really lording it over the sector, their rights and welfare in terms of our government and the host governments of their shipping companies. So importanteng binabantayan po namin yan ngayon, Pinky, moving forward, because there were important concerns raised by the seafarers and their organizations during interpellation. And I'm really hoping that both the amendments and also the undesirable amendments we're guarding against will be reflected in the final BICAM version.
Let's talk about what's happening in the House right now. There are three resolutions calling on government to cooperate with the ICC. One was by the Makabayan Bloc that was filed last month in October. One by Congressman Lagman, and the other, according to Congressman Benny Abante, this is him and Congressman Ramon Gutierrez. He filed this. I was able to interview him yesterday, Tuesday. So just a couple of days ago before it was actually taken up because he's chairman of the Committee on Human Rights. But this is the first time a member of the majority actually filed this. What's your take on this development?
Well, whether it's majority members like Chair Abante or members of the minority, especially the recognized genuine minority representative Edsel, whether it's majority or minority who file these, I always welcome moves, especially on our part in the legislature, to protect the rights and to bring justice to human rights violations victims, such as victims of the extrajudicial killings. Yung mga biktima mismo, yung mga balo nila, yung mga ulila nila. And I hope the executive will also pay heed to these senses of legislators about important issues like human rights, important institutions and processes like the International Criminal Court. The president, no less, has spoken about human rights, including in his foreign visits to different countries, pati sa United Nations. So I hope, and the least that he can do is to put his money where his mouth is. Sabi niya, bagong Pilipinas, di ba? So dapat Pilipinas yan na no one is left behind. So I hope he will really command the executive to make way for that process. Lalo na dumadami ang ganyang mga panawagan mula mismo sa House of Representatives din.
When I asked you about what your take is on this development, again, on this premise that a member of the majority actually filed this, again because similar resolution was filed by the Makabayan Bloc a month ago, hindi po ito napansin. Siyempre, pupunta po yan sa rules at pupunta po sa komite.
Yeah.
But this time, by a member of the majority, almost instantaneously discussed at the committee level. Do you see, nagkakaroon ho ba, siguro sa Tagalog, nag-iiba ho ba ang ihip ng hangin?
I really hope so, Pinky. Yung hangin na yon, we've been stirring it up since 7 years ago, panahon pa ni Duterte, when the EJ case were raging sa gitna ng madugo nilang war on drugs. And mabuti, nakita natin sa House, ayun na nga, sinamahan na ng majority ang mga panawagan ng minority doon. So I hope it will also create a more conducive environment para kalaunan bumalik na tayo sa Rome Statute at bilang miyembro ng ICC.
Okay, just a couple of reactions. We have one from Senator Amy Marcos with regards to this resolution calling for government to cooperate with the ICC. I'm wondering if we have that statement from Senator
Mahiya
Amy.
naman tayo bilang Pilipino, ipapasa pa daw yung ICC resolution na pakialaman tayo ng dayuhan samantalang mga korte natin na papatunayan naman na umaandar, malaya at matibay.
Nakakahiya daw po yun, Senator Risa. In fact, I think there was also a part of that interview that Senator Amy was saying, matibay ang ating korte. In fact, she even said that, look at the former Senator Laila de Lima. She's now out on bail.
Well, I'm really, really glad na napalaya na sa wakas nakapag-post ng bail si Sen Leila. That's the least that the administration could do. Tuparin ang kanilang sinabi nung simula ng administrasyon that they would cease delaying, they would cease obstructing the legal process for Sen Leila. Now, that's one of how many cases of illegal detention. Kaya sa ganap na paglaya ni Sen. Leila, we are all inspired that all persons deprived of liberty unjustly should also be set free. At walang nakakahiya kung kasabay ng ganitong mga few and far between pero celebrated na mga legal victories ng mga biktima ng inhustisya. Walang nakakahiya kung kasabay niyan aandar ang isang international process sa pamamagitan ng isang international institution tulad ng ICC para sabayan at suportahan din yung mga domestic legal and judicial procedures natin. Mas nakakahiya kung in the face of the tens of thousands of EJK victims and survivors, yung mga widows and orphans nila, mas nakakahiya kung hindi natin bibigyang daan ang tulong at suporta, solidarity ng international community, which the President's own statements to the UN and to other countries in spirit should welcome.
Yeah. But let me add this also, no, Senator Risa, even the Vice President basically was saying this is unconstitutional, to quote, to allow ICC prosecutors to investigate alleged crimes that are now under the exclusive jurisdiction of our prosecutors and our courts is not only patently unconstitutional, but effectively belittles and degrades our legal institutions. I'd like to ask for a reaction from you on that.
There's no belittling or degrading at all. Gaya ng binanggit ko kanina, mayroon tayong mangilan-ngilan na mga legal victories dito sa ating bansa at yan talaga tagumpay ng mga victim survivors, ng mga legal teams nila at pati ng mga korte, ng mga judges at justices na nagbigay daan sa ganyang few and precious legal victories dito sa ating domestic judiciary. And there's nothing unconstitutional about being a member of the community of nations. Maging sa ating konstitusyon may ganyang mga prinsipyo. And the Vice President should be minded na yung tinatawag niyang alleged crimes na ina-assail dyan sa ICC case date from 2011. No, 8 long years bago nag-withdraw ang ating bansa sa pamamagitan ni Duterte, kanyang ama, sa Rome Statute at sa International Criminal Court.
I need to go on a break, but I didn't want to lose this train of thought. No, there was a similar resolution filed at the House of Representatives. Sorry, it's not a similar. Sorry, there was a resolution filed at the House of Representatives defending the former President Rodrigo Duterte. This was filed in February, and a similar resolution was also filed by Senator Robin Hood Padilla at the Senate, defending the former President Rodrigo Duterte and the war on drugs. How does are able to actually reconcile this when in February there was a resolution in the House, in the Senate defending the former president, and now in the House saying, please, Philippine government, please, President Marcos, cooperate with the ICC?
I suppose irreconcilable yung dalawang magkakontrang resolution na yon. At least sa House of Representatives, alam na natin yung sense of the House kung bibigyang daan nila yung pinakabagong mga resolution. So ang reading ko bilang counterpart nila, ang sense ng House, or at least yung mga resolusyong iyon ay bigyang daan na yung ICC at humarap na si Duterte.
Will a similar resolution be filed in the Senate? Yung pong katulad dun sa House?
It well could be, Pinky.
Will you file it?
I could.
You plan to do it?
I'm seriously considering it.
All right, up ahead, we'll continue our conversation with Senator Risa Hontiveros. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today is Senator Risa Hontiveros. A quick reaction, Senator, on the joint air and sea patrols by the Philippines and the United States.
Well, I've been calling for continuous and more joint air and sea patrols between the Philippines and not just the U.S., our traditional ally, but more and newer allies in the growing coalition that supports the Philippines, supports our arbitral award, joins with us in upholding the rule of law at sea, as a rules-based resolution of the tensions in the West Philippine Sea, our exclusive economic zone, and the whole South China Sea. I've always said a bigger coalition is a better coalition, and that coalition upholds freedom of navigation as well. So the more joint sea and air patrols with more countries at dumadami sila, Pinky, the better.
Yeah, in fact, Ambassador Babe Romualdez was saying we are looking into obviously something that's been talked about in the past, possibly South Korea, of course, Japan,
Yes,
Australia,
yes,
and other countries.
yes.
But here's the thing, obviously China unhappy with this. Their Ministry of Defense said that is actually accusing the Philippines of enlisting foreign forces to patrol the South China Sea and stirring up trouble.
Wow, talk about super gaslighting. Sino ba naman ang nag-laser pointing sa ating mga tropa? Sino ba naman nag-haras ng ating mangingisda who are dredging our Philippine seabed to create artificial islands within our exclusive economic zone, militarize them, and then use them to claim that our territory is theirs? Who's stirring up trouble? Who's harassing our vessels and preventing them from resupplying our people on the BRP Sierra Madre? It's not us. So to now accuse us of what they're doing, so that's like a double gaslighting right there.
All right, I want to talk about POGO right now, Senator, because you inspected that POGO hub rather in Pasay City sometime November, around second week of November, where authorities previously discovered yung sinabing torture chamber, spa, KTV rooms, meron pang ang aquarium that you yourself saw. Tell us what happened, because I know that there was a hearing after, as you chair the Women and Children's Committee. Ano po? Pero bago po, sorry, let me just add this. Siguro tanong ko lang ho talaga, Senator, how can this happen na katabi po niya yung police station, a stone's throw away sa Senado, a stone's throw away sa DFA? Why so brazen? Bakit ho ganito katapang at nagagawa po nila ito?
Ganyan ka-brazen, Pinky, ganyan sila katapang hanggang ngayon dahil it was practically a state policy since the time of Duterte that POGOs should have such free access into and inside our country. Maalala natin that in the past 3-year investigation of the Senate Committee on Women about POGO-related prostitution, illegal recruitment, and detention, we spent many months on that pastilla scam. And that was a scam to corrupt Bureau of Immigration officials and personnel to allow in more and more Chinese employees of these POGO who victimized Filipino women and children. So itong mga POGO hub centers actually became what IACAT is now calling human trafficking hubs and centers. And they want to actually introduce that term in the expanded Anti-Trafficking in Persons Act. We've been investigating also human trafficking, outbound and inbound. At dito sa Pilipinas, you have these human trafficking hubs or centers na naging hub na talaga ng iba't ibang mga krimen laban sa mga kababaihan at kabataan dito. And it's not only a Philippine, it's a regional problem, it's even a global problem. Yung crypto scamming na ginagawa through these human trafficking hubs or centers, they're known in the West where they are called pig butchering. So global problem ito, which unfortunately our government and country, simula nung panahon ni Duterte, have become a terrible part of. And we are left with those issues now, those violations of the rights of our women and children. And nagpapasalamat lang ako na pati yung iba't ibang government agencies which took cognizance of our investigation since 3 years ago, lalo na sa pamamagitan ng IACAT, now are coordinating more and more with each other and with us in the Senate to expose these and to crack down on them.
Again, a short break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, so budget, let's talk about it quickly. Nasa, ano na ho ba kayo, amendments? The Committee on Finance is...
Yes. It's Committee on Finance is working on the amendments. Tapos iharap ulit sa plenary namin for approval.
What are your concerns regarding the budget pag hinarap na po sa plenaryo?
Well, top of mind since last year, confidential and intelligence funds. Kasi kailangan nakatapak sa lupa yung ating budget. So definitely, confidential and intelligence funds, for example, as augmented by the contingent funds of the Office of the President, should be prohibited. And yun yung isang amendment ko na disallowance for OP contingent funds, for example, to augment confidential and intelligence funds of the OVP. And then where should these funds instead properly be lodged? Dun sa Confi and Intel funds ng mga ahensya natin like the Philippine Coast Guard na meron talagang mandate at expertise sa national defense and public safety.
Pero ito po nga confidential funds coming from the OP and nanilipat po sa Office of the Vice President very quickly. This is already being questioned before the Supreme Court.
It is being questioned by the Supreme Court. So maganda meron tayong laban tungkol dyan in at least two branches of government so far, the legislature and the judiciary.
And I remember there was an Inquirer.net editorial that I wanted to ask you and other lawmakers also. Now that, basically it was saying now that the lawmakers have had the courage or have moved into taking away confidential funds. Should there be legislation? Actually, that was the editorial was saying. You should come up with some sort of legislation to be able to determine who can have confidential funds.
We certainly should, Pinky. Lalo na mukhang dumami masyado yung civilian agencies na nasanay humingi ng CIF from 22 before to 28 according to one observer. And also importante yung pinoint out ni dating Minority Leader Sen. Frank Drilon na bakit pati yung intelligence funds may counting accountability to the President, Senate President, House Speaker, and Commission on Audit Chair. Pero mukhang mas maluwag pa yung accounting processes para sa confidential funds. That's an irony, and I think a very important area of future soon legislation.
Just also quickly, there are, because when you talk about confidential funds, tinanggalan na po yung confidential funds ng Office of the Vice President and the DepEd. Hindi po ito kinatuwa ni dating Pangulo nga Rodrigo Duterte. And then there's talk about impeachment now. I mean, it's loose talk. Of course, the House is saying there's no truth to this. But personally, do you think that is fair to even... I know this is a political, this is a numbers game at the end of the day. But when you look at it, is it right that, or could there be basis, for example, to impeach the Vice President, considering, ma'am, that kung yung nakuha naman po niyang confidential funds, ay nanggaling naman po at naapruba ng executive, ng Office of the President through the DBM. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why tinatanong namin yung propriety sa OP at sa DBM din. I suppose yun yung punto ng kaso sa Supreme Court. And though it is also a numbers game, pero sa ngayon, nakatutok talaga kami sa usapin ng accountability. Sabi nyo nga, Pinky, wala namang sinasabi ang House na impeachment process or complaint. And if ever they will come up with one anytime in the future, titignan naman muna nila kung ano yung grounds, kung may basis talaga. Basta nakatutok kami in this budget process sa usapin ng accountability for past receipts and expenditures na hindi maayos na nasagot ng OVP sa interpellation. At nakatutok kami sa moving forward how to make the use of the taxpayers' money, government's money in this very, very tight fiscal space na mataas ang deficit natin, mataas ang debt natin, how to properly appropriate it for optimal impact on poverty alleviation, social protection, and definitely upholding the national interest in the whole of the territory of our archipelago. So dapat tamang paggastos at tamang pagkwenta
Okay.
at account nitong kaperahang ito.
Senator Risa Hontiveros, ma'am, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pinky.
Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.